Welcome to Coldwell Banker North Central's e-learning course, Module 3, Lead-Based Paint, Your Responsibilities as an Agent. When you are ready to begin the course, click on the Let's Begin button. There are 4 objectives for this module. Upon completion of this course you will understand the potential dangers of lead-based paint, be able to explain EPA requirements for the disclosure of lead-based paint, determine necessary documents regarding lead-based paint when listing a property, and complete the required documents correctly and accurately for your next listing. If you have started this course previously without completion, select the section for which you are ready. Otherwise, click the Begin Section 1 button to proceed. There are 3 areas regarding the potential dangers of lead-based paint to cover in Section 1. Effects of lead in the human body, treatment for lead poisoning, and different methods of testing for lead. There are many ways lead can affect the human body. Poisoning generally occurs when lead is ingested and enters the bloodstream with high concentrations. Typically the lead is naturally removed by the kidneys within a few days. Symptoms of low-level lead poisoning are irritability, restlessness, and vomiting. Without eliminating the lead quickly and enduring prolonged exposure, effects may include destruction of blood cells, anemia, hypertension, gallbladder or appendix problems, and even reproductive problems in both men and women. Children under age 6 are especially vulnerable to lead poisoning. If lead from lead-based paint is released from a wall due to drilling a hole to hang a picture, lead dust may fall on a child's toys. The child is likely to put items in their mouth, and therefore ingest the lead. Children also have an absorption rate 5 times higher than that of adults. In addition, children are still forming their brain and nervous systems, which allows for a more toxic reaction. Excessive levels of lead in children may cause brain damage and affect their nervous system, kidneys, hearing and even their coordination. It can cause headaches and behavior problems. In extreme cases, it can cause blindness or death. There are a few different ways to treat lead poisoning. First, blood tests are conducted to determine lead levels in the blood and establish the severity of potential exposure. Testing is then completed to determine the source of lead, such as the individual's home or daycare. Sometimes, simply allowing the lead to be excreted through natural body processes over the course of time is enough to treat the condition. In severe cases, chelation is required to eliminate the lead from the body quickly. There can be serious side effects from the treatment, so the best solution is to prevent contamination in the first place. There are 3 main ways to test for the presence of lead: chemical spot testing, paint scrapings, and X-ray fluorescence. When spot testing for lead with chemical solutions, the solution is applied to painted surfaces to create a chemical reaction. The test is quick and inexpensive, but is not entirely accurate and can be destructive because surface paint must be scraped to get to older, lower levels. Testing through paint scrapings involves sending 30 to 70 chips of paint to a lab for chemical analysis. This is destructive, potentially expensive, and a slow process as it takes the lab several days to process the chips. The only truly accurate and non-destructive method to test for lead is through X-ray fluorescence. The expensive X-ray equipment bombards a sample with X-rays and causes lead ions to decay. The emitted particles are measured. Testing can be done on site, but the operator must be experienced to ensure accuracy, and the process is very costly. In the second topic of Module 2, the requirements for agents following EPA guidelines for lead-based paint disclosure will be discussed. The law requires compliance from sellers, lessors, renovators and licensed real estate agents. Sellers are required to disclose the presence of any known lead-based paint or lead-based paint hazards. Lead-based paint guidelines apply to residences built prior to 1978. Buyers and tenants are to be given copies of any available report regarding the presence of lead-based paint or lead-based paint hazards along with the EPA pamphlet, Protect Your Family from Lead in Your Home. Prior to entering into a purchase agreement, the buyer will have up to 10 days to conduct a risk assessment or inspection to determine the presence of lead-based paint or lead-based paint hazards. If the buyer chooses, he or she may waive this testing opportunity. As a licensed agent, you must be sure the purchase agreements and leases include specified disclosures and acknowledgement language regarding lead-based paint and lead-based paint hazards. Section 3 will discuss the two necessary documents regarding lead-based paint when listing a property, the federally mandated lead-based paint disclosure, and the EPA-approved pamphlet, Protect Your Family from Lead in Your Home. Both documents can be located in Dropbox. First, you will see where to find the lead-based paint disclosure. Open your document libraries and select Dropbox. Next, open the CB North Central folder. Open the Listing Documents 2014 folder. Last, open the Lead-Based Paint Disclosure PDF. Any home built prior to 1978 must have a lead-based paint disclosure accompanying the listing. It is a good common practice to have a lead-based paint disclosure with every residential listing. If the home was built prior to 1978, have it completed with signatures in the listing packet. With homes built after 1978, leave the sheet blank except for the address and a diagonal line through the page. If you are asked for recommendations regarding testing for lead-based paint or what would be adequate mitigation, avoid offering suggestions. Your opinion on the severity of lead-based paint risks may not match that of your client and could get you into serious trouble. Be sure to fill out the disclosure completely and correctly. Failure to do so along with intentional non-compliance can result in penalties up to $11,000 for each violation. The lead-based paint disclosure consists of 5 main parts: lead warning statement, seller's disclosure, purchaser's acknowledgement, agent's acknowledgement, and the signature block. The lead warning statement provides a basic overview of the federal requirements and general risks of lead poisoning. Health risks are summarized in this section and purchasers are recommended to have a risk assessment or inspection conducted. The second section is the seller's disclosure. Many times, the seller has not had a lead inspection completed and has no knowledge of lead-based paint hazards in the residence. If this is the case, the seller would put an X in the second box. Part B is asking if the seller has any records regarding to lead-based paint in the housing. If there has not been a lead-based paint inspection, they will not likely have any records and would mark an X in option 2. The third section of the lead-based paint disclosure is completed with a sales contract, as this is for the purchaser to acknowledge receipt of information. The purchaser should be given copies of all available information, the EPA pamphlet and initial both boxes C and D. The purchaser then has the decision of taking the opportunity to have the residence inspected for lead-based paint or to waive the option. The appropriate box would be marked. The agent's acknowledgement section is where you as the listing agent will initial to state you have provided the seller with all required information and explain their responsibilities as required by federal law. Finally, the signature block will be signed by all sellers at the time of listing and by the listing agent. Once the property has a sales contract, the purchasers will sign along with the selling agent. The last step to complete is to fill in the listed property address. Now that you have a better understanding of the lead-based paint disclosure, let's practice filling it out. The seller does not know if there is lead-based paint. Mark an X in option 2 of Part A. The seller has not had the home tested or received any lead-based paint reports. Mark an X in option 2 of Part B. Since the property is currently being listed, there will be no completion of the purchaser section. You have given the seller all required lead-based paint materials and informed them of federal lead-based paint rules. Place your initials in section F. Be sure the seller signs the document. Type John Doe to signify a signature in the seller signature block. As the listing agent, you will need to sign the document as well. Type your name in the listing agent signature block. Enter the property address is 123 Main Street in Moberly, Missouri, 65270. The EPA has developed a pamphlet to inform individuals of the potential dangers of lead, where it can be found, and how to protect against lead poisoning. As required by federal regulation and as noted on the lead-based paint disclosure form, all parties purchasing or selling a home built prior to 1978 must be supplied with a pamphlet. The pamphlet is provided in listing packets, sales contract packets, and is also available on Dropbox. Here's how to access that file from Dropbox. The pamphlet is in the same folder as the disclosure. To open the document first, open your document libraries and select Dropbox. Next, open the CB North Central folder. Open the Listing Documents 2014 folder. Last, open the Protect Yourself Lead PDF. In Module 3, you have learned the potential dangers of lead-based paint and how it enters the bloodstream through inhalation or ingestion. Children are more likely to be affected by lead than adults. The EPA requires the disclosure of lead-based paint. As you know, sellers must disclose if they know of any lead-based paint or lead hazards in their home. They also must inform purchasers if the home has been tested and supply the purchaser with copies of any information they have regarding their property and the known presence of lead. There are two necessary documents regarding lead-based paint when listing a property: the lead-based paint disclosure form and the EPA pamphlet. Protect your family from lead in your home. In Module 3 you have practiced the proper way to fill out a lead-based paint disclosure to avoid fines due to non-compliance. Thank you for participating in Coldwell Banker North Central's e-learning course. Please submit your information to ensure the e-learning coordinator is informed of your completion of this course. You have completed this course.